You know that feeling? It's about 2 in the afternoon, you're staring at your computer screen, and maybe you're in the middle of your, like, 4th virtual meeting of the day.
Oh yeah, the dreaded midday slump.
Right. And you just catch yourself totally zoning out. You're looking around your home office or your cubicle, and you're just dreaming about finally leaving your corporate job to build something of your own.
It is such a universal feeling for so many corporate professionals.
It really is. But then, almost instantly, that dream gets overshadowed by this creeping terror of making a massive, costly mistake. Because, I mean, you don't want to fly blind into entrepreneurship.
No, definitely not. And it's a very real, very common psychological hurdle. I
Mm.
mean, people desperately want the freedom of business ownership, but they are terrified of the operational void. You know,
Yeah, the unknown.
exactly. Leaving a totally predictable salary to face unpredictable market forces is incredibly daunting if you don't understand the mechanics of the business you're buying into.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is zeroing in on a brand called Taste Buds Kitchen. Because look, on the surface, you might look at a storefront and think, oh, it's just a neighborhood cooking class.
Right, like a fun little hobby shop.
Yeah. But when you actually dig into the unit footprint maps and the brand playbooks, you realize we are unpacking what is actually a highly engineered franchise model operating in the multi-billion-dollar family entertainment space.
It's fascinating.
Our mission today is to really pull apart the unit economics, the buyer psychology, and the operational strategy that makes this specific model scale so well.
And we really need to look past the aprons and the mixing bowls for this one.
Totally.
Because the real story here is how this model leverages its physical real estate and its corporate support structures to create a really streamlined, predictable path to profitability for the right investor.
Right.
It is fundamentally an exercise in maximizing revenue per square foot.
So let's start right there with the operational model. Because when I was reading through the operational strategy, I had this massive aha moment regarding how they handle their physical space.
The dual demographic approach.
Yes. They run what they call a kid's kitchen by day, adult kitchen by night model.
And that approach is the absolute engine of their business. I mean, they build out a single, beautiful, state-of-the-art kitchen studio. But the way that space is utilized fundamentally shapeshifts depending on the time of day.
Okay, so break that down for me. By day, they are capturing the family market, right?
Exactly. We are talking about toddlers, kids, and teens.
So that's your hands-on kids, cooking classes, summer
This
camps.
is a school field trip.
Yeah, school field trips, and obviously the massive machinery of children's birthday parties.
Oh, birthday parties are huge.
Right. So they are basically filling those daytime hours when most adults are at work with high energy, family focused programming.
Yep. And then 5 o'clock rolls around.
The witching hour.
Exactly. And the physical space, I mean, we're talking the exact same ovens, the same countertops, the same square footage. It pivots entirely to an adult demographic.
Oh,
It transforms into an adult venue offering, BYOB date nights, bachelorette parties, and incredibly lucrative corporate team-building events.
just reading through how they manage that transition, it instantly reminded me of how airlines operate.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison. How so?
Well, if you think about an airline, their most expensive asset is the airplane itself.
Sure. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Exactly. And if that plane is just sitting on the tarmac, it is a depreciating asset doing absolutely nothing but burning cash.
Right, because the fixed costs of owning or leasing that plane do not stop just because the engines are turned off.
Yes. The only way an airline is actually profitable is if they keep that plane in the air, carrying paying passengers as much as humanly possible.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
And when you look at retail real estate, it's the exact same principle. A retail space sitting empty and dark after 5 p.m. or sitting empty all morning while people are at work is essentially an airplane on the tarmac.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Because you are paying rent 24 hours a day, but you're only generating revenue for maybe 8 of them, Taste Buds Kitchen essentially solves this tarmac problem.
It absolutely does. And that is a perfect way to visualize what we call unit economics.
Right.
For anyone unfamiliar with the term, unit economics is basically analyzing the revenues and costs of a single business location to understand its fundamental profitability.
Basically, does the math work for one single store?
Exactly. In retail, your biggest fixed cost is almost always your lease. If you only sell to toddlers, your revenue window is incredibly narrow.
Because they nap, they go to preschool.
Right. The hours you can actually monetize them are limited. But by successfully catering to what the brand calls ages 2 to 99, you are amortizing that fixed monthly rent across two entirely different customer bases.
So your fixed costs stay completely flat, but your throughput basically doubles.
And your economic insulation improves dramatically.
What do you mean by economic insulation?
Well, let's say a huge new playground opens down the street and dips your toddler attendance for a month.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, your corporate team-building revenue is still there to stabilize the balance sheet. You are paying one lease, maintaining one physical build-out, but you're drawing from two totally distinct revenue pools.
Okay, conceptually, I love the airline analogy for the real estate, but let's look at the reality of actually running an airline. It is a logistical nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
And frankly, this dual demographic model sounds operationally terrifying. I mean, how does a franchisee physically and logistically manage that transition?
It's a lot to wrap your head around at first.
Right. You have a room full of 6-year-olds throwing flour at 3 p.m., and then at 7 p.m., you have a corporate HR director walking in with 40 accountants expecting a premium, sophisticated experience.
Right. Expecting the place to be spotless and mature.
Exactly. How do you flip that switch?
Well, the logistics of that transition are exactly where the franchise system proves its worth. A physical transition like that doesn't just happen by accident, you know. It happens through highly documented, incredibly standardized operating procedures. The franchisor provides the literal playbook for the modular storage systems.
Modular storage, so they hide the kid stuff.
Exactly. They have systems designed specifically to hide the kid-friendly supplies. They have specific cleaning protocols to quickly reset the room, lighting changes, and even music shifts that completely alter the ambiance.
That is so smart. But it's not just the physical room, right? It's the marketing, it's the staffing. The way you pitch a parent booking a summer camp on Facebook is vastly different from how you pitch that HR director on LinkedIn.
100%. Which actually brings us to the core psychology of the franchise buyer.
Okay, let's get into that.
The main messaging from the brand to prospective owners is that this system allows you to go into business for yourself, but not by yourself.
I hear that phrase a lot in the franchise world.
Because it's the core value proposition. That corporate professional who is looking to invest doesn't have to invent those marketing funnels from scratch. They don't have to figure out how to reset a commercial kitchen in 45 minutes.
Okay, but let me push back on that idea for a second because I really want to look at this critically.
Sure, go for it.
Let's say I am sitting on a decent amount of capital from a long corporate career. I genuinely love cooking, I host awesome dinner parties, and I understand basic business management.
Sounds like a great candidate so far.
Right. So why wouldn't I just take my capital, sign a lease downtown, and open the deep dive independent cooking school? Why am I buying into a franchise system and paying royalties at all?
Look, the independent route is usually the very first thought for most aspiring entrepreneurs. It's totally natural.
Right. You want to put your own name on the door.
Exactly. But let's look at the factual evidence of what it actually takes to execute a dual demographic model from scratch.
Okay.
If you open an independent cooking school, signing the lease and buying the ovens is honestly the easy part.
Yeah, that's just writing checks.
Right. The actual nightmare begins when you sit down in your living room and realize you have to invent a culinary curriculum that will somehow hold the attention of a 3-year-old for an entire hour.
Which, having been around 3-year-olds, is basically an exercise in crowd control disguised as baking.
Exactly. It's chaotic. And a recipe for a toddler cannot involve sharp knives, it can't have complex steps, and it definitely can't have long baking times where they just sit around and get bored.
Because then you lose them.
You completely lose them, and you have to invent that whole flow from scratch. Then the very next day, you have to invent a completely different curriculum, source totally different ingredients, and design a different logistical flow for a corporate event.
Where adults are bringing their own wine and expecting a seamless, high-end experience.
Exactly. So as an independent owner, you are basically spending your first 3 years just making mistakes.
Tweaking recipes, dealing with angry Yelp reviews.
Yeah, and trying to figure out a supply chain that can provide both bulk flour for the kids and, premium ingredients for the adults.
And while you're doing all that, you are just burning through your working capital.
Exactly. The value of this specific franchise model lies in the extensive support and that really streamlined path to success. The expert leadership team at corporate has already run the thousands of hours of trial and error.
They've already failed, so you don't have to.
Right. They know exactly how many ounces of frosting a 5-year-old needs versus an adult. They provide the playbook from day one.
And looking at their footprint, we have pretty clear proof that this playbook translates across different markets. It is not just like a regional anomaly.
Oh no, their geographic footprint is highly instructive for an investor to look at. We are seeing successful locations spanning a massive cultural and economic variety.
Like where?
Well, you have East Coast presence in places like Chelsea in New York City and Wellesley in Massachusetts. But then the model stretches all the way across the country to Centennial, Colorado, Palo Alto in California, and Bellevue, Washington.
Wow, so true coast to coast.
Yeah, and it even cuts right through the middle of the country with locations in Texas, Missouri, and Kansas.
So what does that geographic spread actually tell us?
It proves that the core human desire they are tapping into, the desire for hands-on, interactive culinary entertainment, is totally universal.
People everywhere like to cook and have fun.
Exactly. But more importantly, from a business perspective, it proves the unit economics work in wildly different real estate markets. I mean, a commercial lease in Manhattan looks very, very different than a commercial lease in suburban Kansas.
Oh, I'm sure it's night and day.
Right, yet the model flexes to accommodate both extremes.
Okay, so we see this model working everywhere from like massive tech hubs to family-centric suburbs,
Oh.
but rolling out a state-of-the-art kitchen that meets commercial code in any of those markets is a massive undertaking.
It is not a small project now.
Which means we really need to talk about the financial barrier to entry. What does it actually cost for our listener to access the system and build out one of these locations?
Okay, let's break down the hard numbers clearly. To get into the Taste Buds kitchen system, the initial investment range sits between $382,500 and $530,998.
Okay, so just under 400K to roughly $500,000.
Exactly.
What is driving that massive spread? Because when I picture a cooking class, I'm picturing, some stainless steel tables, a few residential ovens, and some mixing bowls. Where's that $500,000 actually going?
Well, if you were just buying tables, it would be a
Right.
fraction of the cost.
Right,
But you have to remember, you are building a full commercial facility.
right.
The bulk of that investment goes right into commercial code compliance and build-out.
Things the customer never even sees.
Exactly. You are dealing with commercial-grade HVAC systems to handle the heat of all those ovens.
Oh, sure. Otherwise, the place would be a sauna.
Right. You need specialized grease traps, ADA-compliant bathroom build-outs, architectural fees, and of course, municipal permits.
And I imagine the cost of raw materials and contractors varies wildly.
Hugely. Between a market like California and a market like Missouri, the labor and permit costs are totally different, which accounts for that wide investment range.
That makes total sense. Now, beyond the total investment, they also have specific financial requirements to even be considered as a franchisee, right?
Yes, they do. They require a liquid cash minimum of $150,000.
Okay, and for anyone new to this space, liquid cash basically means money you can access right now without selling a house.
Right, it's unencumbered capital in your checking account, or maybe stocks you can liquidate tomorrow.
So why do they demand that much liquidity if the build-out itself is often financed?
Because that $150,000 is your working capital buffer.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is crucial for survival.
To keep the lights on while you ramp up?
Exactly. When you open a retail business, there is a natural J-curve. You open your doors, you have this grand opening, but your summer camp slots aren't fully booked yet.
And it probably takes time for local corporate HR departments to discover you for their team building.
It takes months, but the landlord still wants their rent on the first of the month.
And your staff definitely still needs payroll.
Exactly. So that liquidity ensures you do not suffocate your own business on day one. It gives you the runway to actually execute the local marketing playbook and ramp up those dual revenue streams until the cash flow finally turns positive.
Got it. And alongside that liquidity, they also look for a total net worth requirement, right?
Yes, a net worth requirement of $500,000.
Which is just your total assets minus your total liabilities.
Right. And that net worth requirement shows the franchisor, and arguably more importantly, potential commercial landlords, that you have a very stable financial foundation.
But commercial leases are what, 5-10 years?
Usually, yes. Landlords want to know you have the staying power to actually sign and survive a 5 or 10-year commercial lease.
Okay, the initial costs and the liquidity make complete sense to me. But I want to zero in on the ongoing costs, specifically the royalty fee, which sits at 8% 8%.
Yes, the 8% royalty.
Which, look, an 8% royalty feels steep at first glance. If you are generating $1 million a year in revenue, you are sending $80,000 straight back to corporate every single year.
It is a significant line item, yes.
For someone coming from a corporate job where they keep their salary, how should they contextualize that 8%? Is that just the cost of doing business?
It really requires a shift in how you view overhead. In an experiential, educational model like this, that 8% is not just a tax for renting the logo on the front door.
Okay.
It is genuinely the cost of continuous innovation.
Because if you are teaching the exact same cupcake recipe for 5 years straight, your customers will eventually just stop coming back.
Exactly. The market gets bored very quickly. Food trends change incredibly fast. We go from cake pops to macarons to whatever the next viral TikTok baking trend is in a matter of months.
Right.
And an independent owner is usually so bogged down in payroll and daily operations that they completely fall behind those trends.
They don't have time to invent the next big thing.
They really don't. Taste Buds Kitchen's stated goal is to provide innovative programs that are as entertaining as they are educational. So that 8% essentially funds a corporate leadership team that acts as your outsourced research and development department.
Oh, so they are the ones tracking the data across all those national locations
Yeah.
to see what is actually selling.
Exactly. And they test the new recipes, they figure out the tricky logistics, and they adapt them so they work for a distracted toddler and also work for a sophisticated corporate group.
And then they just hand it to you.
They push those new, fully tested curriculums down to the franchisee.
So the trade-off is that you pay 8% so you don't have to work in the business doing curriculum design at midnight.
Exactly. You can work on the business, driving sales, networking with corporate clients, and managing your general manager.
That feels like the real key to multi-unit scalability.
It absolutely is. If your curriculum is always fresh, families come back for a birthday party after attending a summer camp. Parents come back for a date night. That continuous cycle of repeat business stabilizes the bottom line.
And that stability allows you to grow.
Right. It allows an investor to eventually step back into a semi-absentee role, hire strong managers to run the day-to-day operations, and focus their own energy on opening a second or third location. You simply can't scale if you are the one writing the recipes.
As we bring all these operational and financial threads together, the real value proposition of Taste Buds Kitchen becomes very, very clear.
It's a highly engineered
It
machine.
really is. We are looking at a model that fundamentally solves the empty retail space problem through this incredibly efficient day-night dual demographic strategy. You are plugging into a proven system backed by an expert leadership team with a coast-to-coast footprint in the family entertainment industry. You are getting the entire playbook so you just don't have to invent it through painful trial and error.
It is a sophisticated, systematized way to enter an industry that is totally centered around food, celebration, and education. The product itself is joyful, but the structural mechanics driving it are incredibly rigorous and scalable.
If analyzing the mechanics of this model has you weighing your own corporate exit, or, if you are looking to diversify your investment portfolio, you need to base your decisions on your specific financial realities. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep dreaming, but more importantly, keep planning. We'll see you next time.